Despite being into arcade racers since I was a kid and being particularly fond of Ridge Racer 4, I really haven't played many of them over the past few years. It might be because many of the racing games I encounter are sim racers, and it's easy to keep playing what I'm already familiar with. Either way, I'm glad I decided to give Sunrise GP a try. Its simple looking appearance was what initially drew me in, but once I started playing, I knew it was the kind of game that's easy to get into, but difficult to master. I like games like that because there's a lot of space to fit your own playstyle into it, and there's usually both a high and low ceiling to entry. My point isn't to say that the simpler a game is, the more I'll enjoy it. There are plenty of complex games out there that I'm a huge fan of, but sometimes it's nice to hit start and be enjoying yourself soon after. It also helped that this was seen with Sunrise GP's settings. It's not the type of game that's going out of its way to be graphically impressive, so it's easy to understand why its settings menu would reflect that. Like I said, almost immediately after starting, I saw how easy it was to play with a minimalist style. While playing, I thought to myself that I was driving as if I were a caveman or something, but all I really did was stick to accelerating, letting go of the throttle a bit, and steering. Every once in a while, I tried to throw in a handbrake or two, mainly when I noticed that there was an especially sharp and sudden turn that kept getting the best of me. The saying, "if it ain't broke, don't fix it," comes to mind, because even if I was playing in a very bare bones kind of way, the results spoke for themselves. When I started to see myself landing close to devs in the leaderboards, I felt incentivized to stick to what I was doing while also wanting to get better. The higher I climbed up the leaderboards, the more I got into playing Sunrise GP. It's great to hear if you're one of the game's devs are potentially interested in playing, but at times it got to me. It's mainly because playing too much left my right index finger throbbing as a result of how long I held the right trigger down. I was playing in a very minimalist kind of way, but due to that, my right index finger was left having to do most of the heavy lifting. That reminds me of how I ended up getting carpal tunnel syndrome / tendinitis due to overplaying guitar. You'd think that would happen as a result of attempting to pull off too many acrobatic moves with a guitar, but the truth is that overdoing the simple stuff is what drove me to and beyond that point. I'm sure you might be thinking to yourself, what does this have to do with an indie arcade racer? But the point I'm trying to make is that despite seeing results from what I did in Sunrise GP, you're more likely to get more or even better enjoyment as a result of making use of the game's other mechanics / controls. At one point I noticed that it was possible to drift in Sunrise GP, and being a big Initial D fan, that appealed to me. The thing is, I felt that there were more negatives than positives when it came to drifting. It might be that I'm just not entirely familiarized with that style of driving in Sunrise GP. Rather than coming off as a smoother way to corner through particularly tight turns, it felt more like something that would hold me back rather than push me forward. Again, it might be that I'm just not used to drifting in Sunrise GP, but that left me preferring to stick to my way of doing things. Besides immediately noticing that it was easy to get going from the start, I was surprised with how soon I noticed the attention to detail that went into the game's steering. I realize it's an important aspect of driving a car, but if you were to take a quick glance at this game, you probably wouldn't expect that. Simply put, turning was overly responsive. At first it felt super stiff, but the more I unlocked cars with different stats, mainly the weight difference, the more I realized how much went into making this aspect of Sunrise GP come off the way that it did. I was impressed by that. Chances are that someone that dedicates more of their time to racing games would think nothing of it, but from what I've experienced, I get the feeling that Sunrise GP is meant to appeal to a broad audience and not just the hardcores. Like I previously mentioned, the weight of the car dictated how steering felt. At times I'd even lose control quickly because of how fast certain cars turned. I also noticed that you were more likely to lose control if you were going from one kind of terrain to another. This was especially noticeable during some of the snow / frozen themed levels. When I was driving over ice, I could really only drive straight ahead. I eventually noticed that you could start to do a sort of pre-turn towards the end of that straight run. The thing is, if I were to overdo it with the steering, my car would sometimes go all over the place, or even straight up fly off the track if my change in driving was too sudden and different when going from one terrain to the next. I'm sure that there are smaller / similar levels of attention to detail that went into Sunrise GP, but that was one of the ones that stood out to me. Sunrise GP has a lot to offer, but the truth is that I spent the majority of my 7 hours with it in the Grand Prix mode. It's mainly because of how easy it was to keep playing because of the leaderboard. The more I saw myself inching closer to the devs' lap time, the more I wanted to surpass them. As a result of that, pretty much at every moment I was attempting to drive as fast as possible. I'm sure some of you will hear this and think, well, duh. But what also helps Sunrise GP come off how it did is that it feels fast when driving. It's possible that the wind effect that can be turned on or off contributed to that, but I didn't turn it off, so I'm not able to fully compare whether or not that had a lot to do with the game coming off as fast as it did. I'm glad that Sunrise GP came off as fast as it did because it allows me to live vicariously through it. I don't have a driver's license, and I don't see myself driving through New York City or other parts of New York at 140 miles per hour. The next best thing is being able to do something similar in a game, and for now, that's good enough for me. The thing is, as great as it feels to go fast in Sunrise GP, at times it got hard to look the faster I went. It might just be a me problem, but the game started to get kind of blurry and it was hard to distinguish parts of the track. I wasn't always certain of the right way to stay on track and not crash into an obstacle. It's not to the point where I'd say, this ruined Sunrise GP for me, but the game would have been better off had I not experienced this. I didn't experience every single part that Sunrise GP has to offer, but I'm still willing to say that it has a lot of replay value. If you want, you could use each of the 21 cars that you can unlock to get the best lap time in each level. I didn't enjoy Sunrise GP to the point where I was willing to do that, but it's nice to know that the option for more gameplay was there. What I did focus on was its leaderboards. It could just be that I'm a competitive person, but I got a lot of enjoyment from seeing my name climb up the leaderboards, or seeing how close I was to taking someone's spot. One of the things that stood out to me about this is that I was left thinking that if Ridge Racer 4, one of my absolute favorite racing games, had leaderboards like this, chances are that I would still be playing it on a regular basis. That's a big compliment for Sunrise GP, because if you can make someone think, man, I wish one of my favorite games did that, chances are that you've been able to accomplish something noteworthy. The fact that I quickly put 7 hours of playtime into Sunrise GP goes to show that it did in fact manage to do that. I've spent the majority of this review praising Sunrise GP because it made me realize how much I've missed arcade racers such as this one. Like I mentioned before, it's an easy to play and understand arcade racer. Some may think that means it's bad or generic, but I love it for what it is. If you're looking for a racing game that can be as easy or as hard as you want it to be, Sunrise GP is for you. From afar, it appears to offer a casual gaming experience, but the saying, don't judge a book by its cover, comes to mind. At the same time, I also don't see someone setting up a sim racing setup just to play this game, or if that's possible. Still, it'd be cool to see someone playing like that. Sunrise GP is currently priced at $14.99 on Steam, and it's worth the price. I was given a review key, so I can't say that I got my money's worth, but I can say that for the time I invested into it, I'm more than satisfied with what I got from experiencing Sunrise GP. Do you have a go-to style when it comes to racing games? How do you feel about a game that goes for a heavily stylized appearance? Are you the kind of player that's satisfied with using leaderboards to challenge yourself? If you enjoyed this content, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Thank you very much for watching.